This is Umar for BoxNation. I'm joined by Gareth A Davies, who's tried to get multiple backgrounds, different backgrounds of what Zoom offer. But
You want me to do one now or not while
no,
we're on?
no, stick with the normal. It's fine.
No, come on, let me do one. Come on, let me just do one. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Virtual backgrounds, black and white.
I know it's like the start of a horror film.
We're on the radio, or we're on an old, very old-fashioned TV. Anyway, enough. Oh God, I better get rid of it. Hang on. Um, I've never seen these before, anyway, but it looks like I'm stuck on here now. Right, there we go.
You are stuck on it. Can you get rid of
Oh,
this
stop
easily?
it. Yeah, no, don't. Let's have a look. There we
There you
go.
go. All right,
Anyway, we're
back to
back.
normality. Well, talking about
Sort of, if you can call it that at the moment.
well, it's definitely not a normal world that we're living in currently because, yeah, talking about radio since the fallout from Joshua Dubois, there's been a lot that's happened on TalkSport,
Mm,
notably with yourself and Don Charles, actually, which I'll come on to.
mhm.
But a key figure on TalkSport, of course, is Simon Jordan, and we've all seen the article that he wrote on in the Mail, Gareth, which Eddie and Frank have both given multiple heated responses to, passionate responses. He is your TalkSport colleague, so I'm not going to try and put you into too much of a difficult position. But can you just give me a comment on that situation, please?
Yeah, well, he's written a very strong column about the national anthem of Saudi Arabia being played and just critiquing certain things that he didn't see as right. And that's within his view to do this, within his right to do that. I don't agree with it. I mean, I think everything the Saudis are doing is good for the sport. They, it was the Wembley Stadium Riyadh season edition. So they underwrote so many things that were going on in the week. I mean, amazing set pieces all week. I mean, I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but it cost up to £2 million for those set pieces for, Leicester Square, Old Billingsgate, Guildhall, Trafalgar Square. It'll never be forgotten. It was an incredible week and an incredible event. And yet it seems that sometimes people just want to criticize for the sake of it. As I say, my colleague is entitled to his point of view, but I don't agree with it. I think a 30-second rendition of the anthem did not denigrate the event in the slightest. It didn't um, it didn't hurt anyone that it was going on, and it just represented the fact that they are paying for an event outside their Riyadh season. And as we know, the investing in different sports event, and I'm glad they're investing in our sport, boxing. All it does is augment our sport. It's made the greatest fights possible in this era. It's transformed the way we're looking at it at the moment. It will leave a legacy, and whatever legacy it leaves, and we believe they're going to invest more. So I think it was just, Simon's very, very critical anyway. He's a critic. That's what he is. He's a critic of things. He does it in football and he does it in boxing. Um, but I just didn't agree with the tone of the piece, if you like. I just don't. I think he went down a rabbit hole with it. And obviously, as you say, since then, I think referring to Eddie and Frank should be an Arab thwabs or an Arab dress. I just think there was some unnecessary comments in there. And when you're writing a piece, it's there forever. It stands in stone. So um, yeah, it was Simon is there to shock and to criticize, and that's what he does, and he does it very well, and he makes some very good points sometimes. But I don't believe that he did the right thing with that, and I understand why Frank and Eddie probably came out firing back at him. Um, so and as he said this week, um, he's got no issue with Saudi investment in boxing. And I think that's really important because, as he's pointed out, when he was it chairman at Crystal Palace,
He was the owner of Crystal
when
Palace,
he
yeah.
was the owner of Crystal Palace, in that period, there was sponsorship of Middle Eastern money on the shirts. So, he can't have any issue with it because he's done that himself. Otherwise, it would be hypocritical of him to do so.
So what was his actual point in that article then? If he doesn't have problem with Saudi investment, which he doesn't, he said that.
Well, I think the tenet of the piece was that we have to be careful about selling our souls. And that did the anthem have a place there? Was it a bit bizarre? And for him, it was. And that it in the national stadium of England, of England's football team, it didn't sit right with him. And I think he just made that point. I think he was there on the night. He cannot have not enjoyed the event itself. It was fantastic. It was a fantastic event.
Yeah, I mean, first it was everything's going to Riyadh. The atmosphere is not great there. Then they deliver a card here of the same caliber. In fact, one of the best Riyadh season cards there's been, top to bottom. And there's more issues. But yeah, okay. We'll
Well,
leave.
people are critical. People look again. This is an argument that Carl Froch has put out as well. That the atmosphere is not right in Saudi, and I'm not going to stretch to xenophobia right now about it, but there, there's a there was never an issue when boxing went to Las Vegas primarily, and I think way back when fights went to the Philippines, and obviously the Thrill in Manila, when very big events went abroad, to Jamaica, to Kinshasa, different places with the heavyweight division. I don't know at the time. I'd have to go back and see whether there was derision over whether the fights were there or not. But it's just a paradigm shift. It's a term we've talked about, as Frank Warren called it, a game changer. And the game has changed, and it is changing. The promoters are working together. We're seeing more um, acquiescence between promoters rather than filibustering between them.
These two big words, two big words there in one
Okay,
sentence.
well, we can get the thesaurus out later, can't we? But at the end of the day, great things are happening in the sport, and it's not. This isn't an Ome Miserum moment. It's a time to celebrate. I know you studied Latin at school, so you'll know exactly
I
what I
did
mean.
actually. Yeah,
Yeah, Ome Miserum. It's not Ome Miserum. It's joy. It's hallelujah at the moment. There's some great things going on.
absolutely. Um, Talking about controversy, I haven't actually spoke to you about
Well,
this.
just for a change,
So there's a lot of it in the sport at the moment.
there is.
Chris Eubank Jr. Now it's been a week since that took place, and he apologized in about 3 hours. Bizarre, strange. What did you make of it?
Well, I'm on record as saying this. I thought it was an ill-advised time to come out with what he came out with there, and to critique in very strong terms, which and the aftermath, the apologies and the acceptance of the apology from Frank Warren, um, clearly denoting that Chris Eubank Jr. had literally been airing his grievances, like Don Charles has aired his grievances recently, like others, like we're talking about all people airing their grievances about things, or their feelings about things, their opinions about things. And we are in a sport of opinions. But I think, given that Chris has been brought into the fold, they didn't that they wanted him to fight Hamza Shiraz, didn't they, on
Yeah.
this event? But obviously he declined it. I get it. He probably wants to fight Hamza when Hamza is a world champion, that it's a bigger fight. He's clearly being paid well for this. He's always box office. He'd come with a prepared, you could tell it was prepared. He was very poker faced about doing it. We know he's a poker player, but I think to attack Frank Warren like he did wasn't the right moment. They could have had that conversation off air behind the scenes, and he could have aired that grievance. Obviously, he stole the headlines, and it made the press conference incredible drama. But as you can see, behind the scenes, what was revealed later was that Frank had won a court case against him. That was obviously an issue for Chris Eubank, and he was harboring resentment around it. But to critique and insult Frank Warren in the way he did, in what is it? We know that boxing's the Wild West. It's a shark-infested industry. It's a very complex, very nuanced industry. But Frank Warren, who's been in it 46 years, has done some amazing things, many amazing things for many boxers and for many boxing fans, as has Eddie Hearn in the last, decade and a bit, the last 15 years. So, as did Kalle Sauerland, help to make Eubank's not name, because his father helped him make his name, but create a resonance for him in that super middleweight series. I just thought it. I don't know. I just thought it smacked of attack for the sake of it and wanting to steal all the headlines, especially as he thanked Turki Al Sheikh and also barely mentioned Ben Shalom, his promoter. And the original question was, why did you go with Ben? Ben was like an afterthought to him. So complex day. I'm glad they sorted it out. I do see him as a viable opponent for Hamza Shiraz. I see Hamza Shiraz being a viable opponent for Saul Canelo Alvarez, by the way, at some point. Yes, at super middleweight. I can see it, by the way. We haven't had that chat yet. And Chris Eubank is going to have big fights. Eubank's there as a potential opponent, as a tease for Canelo as well, if he looks good against Zaramata.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What did you make of it? Are you allowed to comment?
What of Chris?
Yeah.
I thought it was bizarre timing to do it. Yeah. I mean, well, not in a sense of it grabbed all the headlines and attention, and we're still talking about Chris Eubank Jr., but I think most people would agree if you really felt like that, you just do it behind closed doors.
Or you don't do it when you've just been brought into the fold. And I say brought into the fold, meaning that there is there's massive opportunity for him, and all those promoters are now working together. And as we've seen, Eddie's still teasing Ben Shalom and putting him on the spot, as he did in Fight Week with Joshua and Dubois and Joshua, and then saying, let's sign on, let's shake hands now to make these matchups. And he should be embracing it, in my view, rather than defending his position that his broadcaster doesn't want this or his broadcaster wants that. He's done very well on this card. I think has he got 4 fighters on this card?
Lom's got Whitaker, Eubank,
Clark.
3.
Oh, it's 3, is it?
Am I missing someone?
Did he have 4 on the Wembley card then?
He had Tyler, Denny, and Boatsi. No, he had 2 on that. But he's getting regular slots now, yeah.
But he's being brought into the fold. His boxers, his stable's being recognised. So, and all the broadcasters are working together. I imagine all 3 are doing this one, aren't they?
DAZN, TNT, and Sky, yeah. They're all...
Yeah, and all 3 did the last one. We're entering a new era. It will get shaken up again. Who knows? It may all end up on one platform. We do not know at the moment,
Are you and Don Charles okay then? Have you spoke to him since that
conversation? No,
I
don't know. I've got no need to ring him. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't. If I shook hands with Don at the end of the show, I mean, Don's grievance is Don's grievance. He's wrong about me, so it's fine. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to lose sleep over Don's opinion of me. And I know I'll see him again. I've always liked Don. I've always gotten well with him. And I think he's very loved in the sport. And I think maybe he is underappreciated.
Gareth, is there anything you can think of in the build-up to this fight with Joshua and Dubois that you said about Daniel, that you said about Don, anything that may have got him to be like this?
No, and he certainly hasn't read the pieces I wrote in Fight Week, because I wrote a piece saying this is the perfect time for Daniel to take over the division with a resounding victory over Anthony Joshua. Just as I said, there's always dangers for Joshua that lurk sly and unseen, because it's catastrophic kind of commercially whenever he loses, because he has got a mainstream following. No, I mean, I think I picked Joshua to win by knockout in round 6 in round betting with William Hill, and between rounds 5 and 8, I was wrong. We're often wrong about results. Well, I say I'm often wrong. I am wrong about results sometimes. It's just an opinion. And as I said to Don at the time, it wasn't. I pick with my head, not my heart. And it doesn't mean I'm not pleased for Daniel, and it doesn't mean I'm not disappointed for Anthony. But this is boxing. At the end of the day, it's a boxing match, and I think Don is probably deep down. He's probably flying at the moment. That it all went so amazingly well according to the game plan, and he probably helped come up with that and hatch that plan. So in this moment of success, he's not sitting back. He's saying to everyone who critiqued his fighter, who he feels critiqued his fighter not being good enough, that they're wrong, and he wants to tell them. On the other hand, I never called Daniel Dubois a quitter against Joe Joyce, Umar. I never called him a quitter against.
Usyk.
Although I did think it was a borderline low blow. So that might be one of the things. But I've also said very, very complimentary things about him, which he deserves in the last 13 months, about what Don's done with him and what he's done, what he learnt from the Usyk defeat, what he learnt from Gerald Miller, and what he learnt from Hrgovic.
I noticed towards the end of the conversation, Ian, who is also in who works with Don and
Ian Dewberry, yeah.
Ian Drewbury and Don were very triggered when you said that Joshua fluffed his lines, and I get why, because it felt like you weren't giving credit to Daniel and what he did in that first round.
No, it was an analogy. They didn't like the analogy, but that's fair enough. But fluffing your lines is like the first act, the first scene of the first act of a big play. He didn't get his lines right.
But
He,
what from what you're saying, that it sounds like it was all Joshua's fault and Daniel didn't. It was, you're not giving any credit to Daniel and what he did to Anthony. Do you
yeah,
understand?
they were saying that, but they were also saying that I didn't have the right to say that about Anthony Joshua. Like, it didn't matter what I did on Saturday night with them. It was like a domestic that wasn't ever going to get sorted out. It needed a therapist there to stop the action. And thankfully, it was only half an hour of it. But I mean, a therapist between a couple arguing over something. I didn't have the sense. I think I gave Daniel his full credit, but I think what happens when we know that commercially AJ is the A side, so the fascination is around the scrutinizing of every detail about Anthony Joshua, what goes right or wrong, whether he stumbled, whether he looked wooden, whether he looked listless early on. I even on the broadcast live on Talksport, in all my writing, I just said Daniel Dubois looks sharp, ready for action, ready to and tenacious. He had beads of sweat coming off him when he walked out. Do you remember that? They'd
Yeah.
really warmed him up well. So I think they were shouting at the wrong person, but I do understand their argument, which is we need more recognition, and it's simple as that. Some of the things that were said, I just think Don feels generically. I think he was kind of attacking the 97% that picked Anthony Joshua to win. So yeah, I did take it personally, but I didn't take it too personally. And
Just picking this back up with Gareth A Davies, because I've got the old version of Zoom, not the upgraded one where it cuts out.
well, that's wrong. You should be upgrading by now. You've got your own platform. You should be upgrading.
Well, that platform will be present at Better BFV Bivor, a huge occasion next week. For me, the best fight in boxing. And
Looking forward to working with you on it as well.
yeah. Well, I was going to leave that for next week, but we can announce it now. You're
Okay.
going to be doing some bits for BoxNation.
Lovely. Looking forward to it. And then coming back for the big Box Nation show at York Hall, where you'll be doing the post-fight interviews.
Absolutely. But in terms of next week, the best fight in boxing?
Um, well, two undefeated fighters, amazing styles, 20-0 with 20 knockouts for Better BF. Bivol, an amazing ring exponent, a brilliant, brilliant fighter. You go back and forth all the time on who's going to win it. One morning wake up and I think it's better Biev's going to use those threshing punches in bunches and put Bivol out of his game. And then other days I think Bivol's going to control it with his brilliant jab and his movement. Wow, really looking forward to it. Brilliant undercard. And again, we're there a year later at the opening of Riyadh season again. What a year it's been in the sport. It's going to be an amazing anniversary to be out there. Can't wait for it. And a bit of Saudi Arabian, Middle Eastern heat on our skin, a bit of vitamin D, late finishes, 20 hours a day working as it is out there. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So actually just thinking about this, are these the two best Russian fighters in history? Kovalev might have something to say about that, but would they
There was
both
a
beat
time when he was
Kovalev?
amazing. The two best Russian fighters in history. Certainly probably the best. I say certainly probably the best matchup we've ever seen in our lifetime between two Russian fighters. And um, there's a great MMA fighter, a heavyweight who Fedor Emelianenko.
I've heard, I'm not a UFC MMA.
He was a great. I mean, he dominated the heavyweight division for 9 years in MMA extraordinarily. But yeah, it is. It's an incredible fight, an incredible matchup, and fingers crossed because it's been delayed once, hasn't it?
Mm.
It's a very very fitting denouement on the card um, for Crown or Crown Four in Riyadh to open the season with it. As I say, with an incredible undercard. I'm looking forward to Wardley and Clark again. First women's fight, Sky Nicholson and Raven Chapman on the card as well. So no, it's going to be an amazing week. I'm sure they've got a lot planned. It only gets bigger every time we go. So it's fantastic to be involved in it.
I'll see you out there. Safe journey. And I'll, yeah, catch up with you next week. Thank you, Gareth.